Good morning. Well, I look a little different this morning. I am staying in the hospital currently with my son James, who has a really bad case of the flu. And I actually have time to myself and a few minutes in the morning to get up and look pretty and still can sit down and, have quiet time, which is kind of amazing. So that's kind of actually what I want to talk about this morning. To give a little history here, when I was a teenager or younger, I don't know, probably a teenager, I started noticing in the Old Testament where it talks about Moses and some of the old prophets. I think Moses particularly is called a friend of God. And I'm like, God, I want to be a friend of yours. How can I get to be a friend of God? And I had no idea where to start, but that was the cry of my heart for many years. It's like, God, I want to be somebody you call me friend, that you call friend and you talk to. And he says, he says to Moses, how could I, before he goes in and destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, he's like, how could I do this thing without telling you, because you're my friend? And in the New Testament, Jesus talks to his disciples and he's like, I tell you these things because you're my friends. And I'm like, God, that's what I want. So this has kind of been my life pursuit. It has its ups and downs of faithfulness, but God has really just, I don't even know quite how to say it, but renewed me in the last few months again. And my time in the morning with God is the best time of my entire day. I literally can't wait till my alarm goes off at 5:30 so I can get up and spend some time with God. And it's been a long process. It's been a long process of a lot of hours and a lot of days and months and weeks and years sometimes of just dry words on a page. But I'm like, God says, how do you get to be friends with someone except spending time with them? And this is the only thing I know to do. So if that's where you are, it will get better. You will break through and experience the presence and experience the voice of God and the heart of God as you continue being faithful to just say, you know what, I don't care what it feels like, I'm gonna spend time with Jesus. So I just want to encourage you in that. But so back to where I am here in the hospital today. Excuse me. I'm getting over a touch of the flu myself, so my nose is kind of running along with cough. But I feel much better today. Felt pretty good yesterday, but I feel great today. So the situation with my son in the hospital. Okay, that's where I am. He's been sick with this flu for, I think it was closer to about 9 days when we came in Monday night. And Monday, I find out my brother-in-law, who has also been sick, we've all had it, but he had been the sickest and he had already been out of work for a week. He went back in Monday and discovered he has pneumonia on top of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at my kid who has lung issues, has had his entire life. He's been laying in one position, staring at the wall, or sleeping for the most part, spiking a fever up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down for an entire week on oxygen and vent support, which normally he doesn't have any of during the day. And I'm going, okay, it's been a week. We're still seeing him breathing like he's on the one hand acting like maybe he's starting to feel better. There's a couple of, he was a little more awake this afternoon, but on the other hand, he's working harder to breathe. You can see his ribs every time he breathes. And doing all the normal treatments. And like over the top extra treatments. It's not popping him out of this. It's not affecting his retractions and his how hard he's having to breathe, he is still distressed. And he's still just laying here. So I talked to my husband about it. We debated back and forth through the afternoon. And that, should we, what should we do? So I tried a bunch of extra stuff that afternoon. And we decided we would discuss it when he got home. So he gets home, and I was like, okay, here's what I did. Here's how he is. It didn't seem to have really helped. He's not getting actively worse, but I don't see him getting better, other than that he was a little more awake this afternoon for a few hours. So he's like, well, why don't you call the doctor? And I was kind of surprised, because he's the first one to say, if you call the doctor, they're going to tell you to come in, and what if we just wait a couple more hours and he gets better? Why don't we just wait till tomorrow when you're already scheduled for an appointment? Which we had already discussed. So I'm like, okay, well, but he's like, well, just call the doctor and talk to them, because he's obviously very sick and he's not getting better, and we can see some signs that, he's potentially maybe getting worse in some ways. So we're like, okay, let's see what we can do. So he goes outside to do some chores. And I called the doctor, put in a call to the after-hour service, because, of course, it was like right after 5 o'clock. And I'm waiting for the doctor to call me back. When he comes back in the house, he's like, whoa, wait. I just remembered you have a doctor appointment tomorrow. Why don't you just take him in the morning? And if they want to admit him, then you can admit him. And I'm like, well, okay. But at this point, I've already called the doctor, so we just have to wait and see what is decided. So, of course, the doctor is like, as sick as he sounds, from everything you've done and you're describing to me, I think that it is safer to go ahead and come in, because these things can turn into something else really quickly if it's going to. So I'm like, okay. So I arrived at like 9:30 in the evening with James. And they don't see any pneumonia. They see diffuse viral pneumonia-ish, but I don't know that they necessarily call it pneumonia, in his chest, but no bacterial. There's tests are not coming back with anything bacterial, so there's no secondary infection. He still just has the flu. So, and yes, he does have the flu. They did double check that. So, I'm like, okay, God, I was praying about this. Should we take him in? Should we not? I was really surprised that Benjamin was just like, call the doctor. Because I was kind of a half a mind one way or another. Should we just wait it out another night? And yet here we are, and they're kind of, they've ramped up treatments a little more than I had at home, but it's something I totally could have done. And why are we here? Why am I here? What was the point of all this if there's nothing they're doing or going to end up doing that I couldn't have done at home? And I just was kind of pondering on this, like feeling a little guilty. Here was my husband shuffling kids back and forth to babysitters, working, and I'm sitting here in the hospital with a kid. Yes, I'm taking care of him, but like the nurses are taking care of him. I'm just sitting here waiting, because he can't be left here by himself. Well, technically he could, but he knows the difference now, and I don't leave him by himself as much as possible. A few hours here and there, but not just like it used to be. I'd be gone for several days at a time, because he lived here for several years, and sometimes I'd have to leave for a couple of days, and he didn't really know the difference. He does know the difference now. So here I am. So I wake up, long story, sorry. So I wake up the next morning after having slept incredibly well on the silly hospital bench, but yay for fuzzy blankets. Didn't sleep quite as well last night, but he kept having stuff going on, so I kept waking up with that too. But I woke up and I realized this song. Okay, we're back to Frozen. My kids still love Frozen. And they convinced Daddy that we needed to buy Olaf's Frozen Adventure, which is like a little addendum. It's like a little 30-minute show about Olaf going out and finding Christmas traditions for Anna and Elsa. It's really cute. And it's got 4 more songs. The best part ever, right? So, one of the songs from that show is called When We're Together. And they realize at the end of the show that Olaf is their Christmas tradition, because Elsa had made Olaf when she was a little kid, before everything had, gotten bad, and they had to hide. She had to hide for the rest of her life, and they had Anna had drawn pictures of him and made little stuffed straw dolls of him, and that's what she would give to Elsa for Christmas, and that was kind of their Christmas tradition. They would remember Olaf, who they used to play with when they played together. And so they sing this song to him when they find him after his whole thing has completely miserably failed. That when we're together, and the last line of the song is, "When we're together, it's my favorite time of year." So this song, that last phrase of that song has been playing in my head all night as I was sleeping. And I wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, God, this song is just running through my head over and over. And he's just like, this is me. This is me telling you that when we're together, it's my favorite time of any time, when we get to spend time together. And so I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I just kind of ponder on that a little, and I go back to sleep. So that afternoon, I got free, and I was able to come back up to the room and just spend some time, uninterrupted, quiet time. I brought a book to read, and I did some artwork, and just, talking to God. And I'm just like, okay, God, what is this all about? And he's like, get out your notebook and start writing. And I just felt like he was like, one of the things I had been reading, because I'm reading a book called The Prophetic Voice of God by Lana Vawser right now, which has been amazing. A lot of confirmations of what I felt like God has taught me, that is like, yes, this is God. It's been really cool. And a lot of, wow, that's interesting. That's something I need to pay attention to. So I've really enjoyed this book. And one of the things she was talking about is and I don't remember the verse off the top of my head, is that she was talking from, is that God starts with our greatest desires, and he does things, because he says, I will do abundantly above more and all that you can ask or think, right? And he starts with our greatest desires, and he goes up from there. And so it was like, he's like, this is your greatest desire, to spend time with me. And I know that. And I arranged this situation. And it's like, I'm feeling guilty that I've left the kids, and I've left my husband, and all of this extra burden on all of them, and all of the things I'm supposed to be taking care of. And he's like, I arranged this situation so you could spend time with me in a quiet area with for the most part, no other demands on your time. So you have a couple days to just hang out with me. And I'm just like in tears. And I'm just like, I don't even know how to express this. And it still feels like it's just not quite right, because I have a lot of responsibilities that other people are now taking care of. And God says, I will make time and make a way for you to spend time with me when that is what you ask me for. And I hope this is able to encourage someone. I hope that someone gets something out of this. And this is what God wants to do with us. He created us to be friends with us, to spend time with us, and there's no other reason in the universe that he needed humans, but someone to voluntarily love him and to spend time with him and to be friends with him. And most of the other creatures, the heavenly creatures, they don't have a choice. They are who they are, and we have a choice. And God says, I want you to come spend time with me. That is my favorite time of year. So I hope this encourages someone to say, you know what? whatever it takes, I'm going to spend time with God. I'm going to spend time with Jesus, because that is what he wants to use us, but more than he wants to use us and send us out to do things, he wants to hang out with us. And hanging out with us is where it starts if we want him to use us. So hopefully you got some encouragement out of this. If you like this, and I kind of even hate to say this, but please subscribe to my channel so that you can continue getting these. At some point, I'm not going to continue posting them on Facebook. I will keep going from here. But you all have a fabulous, blessed day, and let me know what you think. I'd love to see comments, interaction. That. And it always feels awkward to end this, but I will see you all in a few days. Excuse me. Have a good day.